Welcome to the Movie Zone. Today, we are recapping the 2010 heist thriller movie, The Town. Tales of heists and robberies are fun for moviegoers, but not always for the people who live in them. As usual, spoilers ahead, so be ready. Let's begin. This is a true story of a time when a single blue-collar Boston neighborhood produced more bank robbers and armored car thieves than anywhere in the world. The voice of Doug McRae is heard explaining to his gang, composed of his friends James Jem Coughlin, Albert Glonsey McClone, and Desmond Des Eldon, their next mission. He tells them about the routine of a guard named McGuire. He picks up money from the Cambridge Merchants Bank every Wednesday and Friday mornings. Just as McGuire walks from the truck to the front door of the bank wheeling a dolly, the moment the courier opens the door, the gang climbs out of the van, armed with guns and wearing full-face skeleton masks to hide their identities. They burst through the front door and overpower him. As this happens, one of them runs upstairs and begins disabling the security tapes. Doug then grabs the assistant branch manager, Claire Kesey, and leads her over to the vault at gunpoint. After trying to trick the robbers when the safe is okay to open, she fails and Doug holds her at gunpoint. To calm her down, Doug puts his hand on top of Claire's and tells her to take her time. She slowly spins the combination and the vault is unlocked. While Doug enters the vault and begins loading the money into duffel bags, there is a knock at the door from a customer trying to get in, distracting the robbers. Claire takes advantage of this distraction to use her foot to trip the silent alarm. Realizing they have less time than they had planned, Coughlin now proceeds to cover everything with a large jug of bleach. Just when they are about to leave, Des realizes that the silent alarm has been tripped. Coughlin gets pissed and demands to know who set the alarm off. Despite the bank president insisting he hadn't touched it, Colin proceeds to whip him across the head multiple times until Doug stops him. Claire looks up and notices a distinct tattoo of a man with a thief bag on Coughlin's neck. The crew finish dousing every surface they can with bleach. Coughlin takes notice of Claire and realizes she will be useful to them. Coughlin and the others take Claire as hostage to use her as a shield if the police show up. They lead her out the back door to a side alleyway, where they climb into a stolen electrician's work van. They drive her to a beach near Logan International Airport and let her out. She is told not to remove her blindfold until she walks far enough to feel the surface on her toes. Later, the criminal investigation into the bank robbery is underway. FBI Special Agent Adam Frawley and his partner Dino Ciampa arrive to look at the scene. Dino notes the robbers stole a city work van, which hasn't yet been reported stolen. They are called away when Frawley receives a text telling him the getaway van has been discovered and, as expected, torched. The robbers had dumped the van on a street in Charlestown and lit it on fire to destroy any DNA evidence. When Frawley and Dino arrive at the scene, the fire department is just finishing putting out the blaze. Since all of the professional robbers they know of are dead or in prison, the detectives conclude that they must be the new professionals in town. Doug meets up with his pals at the abandoned hockey rink. Coughlin tells them they've got a little problem. He produces Claire's driver's license and tells them she lives in the neighborhood. Coughlin proposes they kill her and offer to take care of it. Doug snatches the license from Coughlin and asserts he will take care of Claire. Elsewhere, Frawley is interviewing Claire at his office. She explains how the robbers had threatened to kill her if she talked to the police and had also taken her driver's license. However, she doesn't bother to tell him about the tattoo on one of the guy's necks she saw. Doug and Coughlin go to Mike, one of their friends. While they are waiting, they converse on the couch. It is clear Doug wants out of this criminal lifestyle. They then go to Town Flowers to deliver a cut of the loot to the local crime boss, Fergie Colm. Following this, the gang goes to gamble the money away. Later, as Doug sits in a bar with his girlfriend, Krista, whom he could care less about it appears, it's almost apparent that she is a very racist person who doesn't have an empathy for anyone. Let's just forget her while we can. The next day, after sitting through a hellishly boring self-help meeting, Doug goes to work tailing Claire. He observes her as she leaves her apartment and heads to a local laundromat to wash her laundry. Suddenly, she approaches him and asks him if he has any change she can use. He apologizes and claims he doesn't have any quarters for her. Doug sees this as an opportunity to ask her if she is alright. He offers to buy her a drink to make up for not being able to help her earlier with the change, and also because she looked kinda down. Doug takes Claire out to dinner at a local restaurant owned by one of his former hockey friends. Doug reveals he works for a local gravel company. In spite of being attracted to Claire, Doug is forced to make up some lies about himself for obvious reasons. The next day, when Doug meets up with Coughlin, he lies and tells him that Claire is clear and doesn't need to be killed. Frawley and Dino look at the junction box outside the bank as a Veracom utility crew works to patch it up. The supervisor notes the way the crew hacked the box is so unique. The only way one could know how to do it is to get a job at Veracom, which meant that an employee must have called in sick for that day. Doug and Claire go on another date and they talk about the attack on the bank. Doug learns that she's talked to the police, but is relieved to know that police haven't identified the culprits of the job. He also learns that David, the branch manager Coughlin beat up, is in a hospital nearby, and Claire feels terrible she hasn't been able to see him since the robbery. Doug and Claire go to the hospital to meet David. Doug is aghast to notice his entire forehead and right eye are wrapped in bandages from where Coughlin whipped him, and the doctors give David a 50% chance of his eyesight in his right eye returning. A heavy guilt is set on Doug's heart. Later, while dropping Claire off, she then reveals that there have been some other people who have been harassing her as she walks to work, throwing bottles and taunting her. Doug asks Claire if she recalls what they look like. Afterwards, Doug asks Coughlin for his help. However, he doesn't tell Coughlin what the job is. They barge in the harasser's apartment and begin beating him and his friend. While they return, Doug puts some packs of cocaine scattered in the apartment to make it look like a drug deal and avoid suspicion. The police narrow down on Desmond Eldon, who works for Veracom. Fortunately for the cops, in Veracom, failure to show up at work is recorded as a sick day, and Des has recorded several sick days that coincidentally fell on the same day and many other days corresponding to armed robberies of banks and cars. Frawley and Dino start following Des and manage to get several surveillance photographs of him with his gang at the barbecue. Doug is next seen having lunch with Claire at an outdoor cafe not far from the bank. When Claire excuses herself to use the bathroom, Coughlin shows up to confront Doug. When Claire comes back, he covers Coughlin's tattoo and makes up some excuses to avoid suspicion. That was close. Doug confronts Coughlin later, but Coughlin argues that Doug is endangering them by sleeping with the evidence. Bad guys don't sleep with evidence, they get rid of them. Besides, Coughlin was here to inform him of the new assignment, an armored car robbery in the North End. Doug agrees to do it on the condition this will be their last job for a while. The next morning, he leads the gang as they carry out a blitz attack on an armored car in the North End. As Doug, Coughlin, and Glonsey arrive at the ambush location, they find the armored truck is running late. They circle around the block once to avoid suspicion. As they complete their first go-around, they see the armored truck pull up to the curb. All three men proceed to put on rubber masks, complete with wrinkled faces and nuns' veils. The heist is a piece of cake for these robbers, and they are successful after some initial resistance. As they drive off, Doug tells Glonsey to drive slow and act normal. However, just as they are going around a corner a few blocks away from the scene, Doug looks behind them and sees a police car. The police car immediately turns on its sirens and gives chase. Glonsey slams the accelerator to the floor, trying to outrun the cops. The cop car pulls up alongside the van, and then it forcibly swerves into the side of the van's rear bumper. Glonsey is unable to maintain control, and the van spins around and screeches to a stop. A shootout soon ensues as the robbers refuse to surrender themselves to the authorities. It's like Fast and the Furious without the cars or Vin Diesel. Glonsey continues racing through the streets at high speed, hoping to shake off the pursuing police car. After some time, a stolen car driven by Des stops in front of them. Glonsey brakes to stop, and the police cars chasing them come to a stop behind them. The three men in the minivan promptly climb out. As Coughlin keeps the police pinned down, Doug grabs the money bag and fills the interior of the car with the gasoline and lights it with a cigarette, causing the interior of the minivan to explode in a ball of flames. Doug and the gang jump into the Jeep and peel away, tires screeching. Glonsey drives the car back to Charlestown. Doug and the gang jump out, Coughlin planting random hair he acquired from a barbershop in the back seat. They have only just started preparing to transfer everything to their second switch car when they see something that stops them dead in their tracks. A lone police officer. After a few tense moments, the standoff is broken when the officer turns his head away from them to let them pass. Sometime later, Jem approaches Doug with another job, but he turns it down. He tells Fergie he will not do the job, but Fergie warns that he will kill Claire if Doug does not do the job. Doug reluctantly agrees. The job starts as Doug and Jem enter a Fenway Park dressed as Boston police officers, wearing sunglasses to hide their identities. Like that works. While Des deactivates the security system, Doug and Jem approach the guards near the cash room and pretend to be responding to a 911 call, then draw pistols on the guards and force them to the ground. After securing these men and entering the cash room, they load $3 million into their duffel bags and head over to their getaway vehicle, an ambulance. They meet up with the others and quickly change into paramedic uniforms. The environment is too quiet. Something fishy is going on. Suddenly, Jim spots an FBI SWAT team in the garage and instinctively opens fire on them. A shootout erupts, and in the process, several SWAT officers in the garage are wounded, and Dez is injured when he is deafened by a flash grenade. Glonsey is also shot twice in the shootout. Doug and Jim put on their cop uniforms and they go their separate ways, somehow blending with the approaching police. Frawley figures out the ruse when he overhears the police captain talking to Dino about how the robbery was committed by 2 cops. He scans the officers on the scene and spots one cop walking away from the action carrying a duffel bag. They realize it's Coughlin. Frawley immediately gets out of his car and follows. As Coughlin reaches Boylston Street, multiple police cars approach from both directions. Doug reaches the sidewalk knowing what happens next if he's arrested. Coughlin immediately opens fire on the cops. One police officer manages to shoot Coughlin in the chest. Coughlin falls, unharmed due to his bulletproof vest. Frawley, however, shoots his legs with his shotgun. He hides behind a mailbox and thinks about the options he has left. Frawley gives Coughlin 30 seconds to surrender. Coughlin, cocky as he is, takes the opportunity to enjoy a soda left on the sidewalk. After finishing it, he yells that he surrenders, but he stands up with weapons drawn. Almost immediately, a SWAT officer shoots him through the head. While Frawley and a few uniformed cops approach the fallen Coughlin with weapons drawn, Doug quietly climbs into a police car and drives off, unnoticed amidst the chaos. Doug drives the police car to Fergie's shop. He then seeks out Fergie, who begins shooting at him with a pistol. After an exchange of some shots, Fergie falls wounded. Doug walks up to Fergie, puts his pistol to Fergie's balls. A gunshot is heard. He calls Claire and asks her to run away with him, but Claire says she wants to meet him instead, as it will be just like one of her sunny days. This reminds Doug of when she told him that her brother had died on a sunny day. It was a coded message to warn him of the FBI. Doug puts on a bus driver's uniform and somehow makes his way to a station. He then boards a train heading south. Elsewhere, Frawley returns to his car. He finds a note from Doug under the windshield. Go F yourself. Later, Claire finds a bag buried in a garden. Inside the bag is a tangerine, a buttload of cash, and a note that ends with, "I'll see you again, on this side or the other." Claire uses the money to finance the renovation of a local hockey rink and dedicates it to Doug's mother. Doug is seen last, far away from Boston, finally free from the life he hated. What do you think about this gripping movie? Tell us in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. See you next time.